But for me, when I was a senior in college, like about to graduate, I had no idea what my future held. Like I really feared the unknown, and I would have no regrets that how I spent my life, pursued things that would enrich my life.
Really love that way how it's every opportunity that God gives you is going to be something that becomes a part of you.
So my advice to students who are graduating, maybe not knowing what they want to do is, first maybe focus on becoming a three-dimensional person.
I can tell you truly care and the message that you really want us to have at the end of the day.
Biola students long for that spiritual experience.
Dean Yamada is a professor of cinema and media arts and an award-winning filmmaker. He is a USC graduate and his work has screened at top international festivals. His short, Jitensha, earned major awards and aired on PBS. His first feature film, Cicada, shot in Tokyo alongside students and alumni and won 8 awards, including the Grand Jury Award at the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. As an educator, he challenges students to find their voices and empowers them to tell their stories.
To kind of figure out, what their voice is and what it is that they have to say.
From the Torch Podcast Network, welcome to Office Hours. Your professors on mass. Office Hours is where real people wrestle with real questions. Hi, I'm your host, Jae Koo. We just have a couple of questions that we want to run through, and we would just love to hear about you and your studies.
Yeah.
So the first question is, how did you come to faith?
I was a sophomore in college. I went to USC. And up until that point, my sister Joyce was the only Christian in our family. And she was praying for me. And I just wasn't very susceptible because growing up, I was a skater. Like skateboarding was my first love. And I just, wasn't interested. And my identity was primarily as just being a skater in my teens. But when I got to college, I just started going through a lot of, hardship and just a lot of things were happening in my sophomore year that caused me to really question, I guess, my existence. And during that time, my sister was teaching the 3rd grade at this Christian school, and one of her 3rd graders' assignments was to write me letters. And so I'd get these letters, and these kids would ask me about my skateboard, and they would tell me that Jesus loves me. So during Christmas, I went to go visit and did a little skateboard demo and ollied over my sister and stuff. And during lunch, the principal took me to her office and shared the gospel with me. And we prayed together, and my perspective changed that day. I just felt lighter. And then my sister encouraged me to find a fellowship and had no idea what that even meant. But slowly, God opened a lot of doors for me to understand who he is in my life. So,
Do you remember how old you were when this happened?
yeah, I was 19.
Oh wow, that's an amazing testimony. I feel like I didn't really hear too much of those evangelist activities actually coming into play.
It's true. I mean, she actually used the 4 spiritual laws with me. They were just, very earnestly praying for me. Even when I arrived at her classroom, they had a prayer board, on the chalkboard, prayer requests, and at the top was my name. And so I know that, it meant a lot to those kids as well.
Gotcha. That's so amazing. Yeah, so how were you at the same time with your academic background during this time? Because I know you had a different undergraduate compared to your grad, and I don't know what you were expecting your career to be built out of, just based on things you were telling me.
Yeah, I was a humanities major at USC with a minor in film. And it was just a very broad liberal arts education, which I loved. The film minor allowed me to take one class in which I had a Super 8 camera in my hands. I made these 5 short films, one of which I'll show in visual aesthetics. But it just opened my eyes, and the expression that I felt, the satisfaction that I felt telling a story, just me and the camera, stayed with me. And these 5 films, after I graduated, I would show them to people because I was so proud of them. And then after 3.5 years, I went back to USC to get my master's. So I have my MFA in production. And graduate school was so much different because it was all about film, where undergrad was like 75% social and learning outside the classroom. Graduate school was truly just film from beginning to end, and just learning the concepts, diving in, and yeah, it far it far can't think of the word. It far surpassed my expectations. Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. Just as a humanities and CMA major, I'm a philosophy and CMA major at Biola.
That's awesome.
It's been very interesting to see how my life is being taken away by God. There's a lot of uncertainties, whether it's the humanities part or the CMA part, and
sure.
I'm sure there's many other students who are artists or are in places where they're not sure. I don't know if you were in the same boat, but would you have any words to tell those students?
Well, I was very much in the same boat and probably even way further behind where all of my students are, because a lot of my students know what they want to do and they have their career path kind of carved out, many of them. But for me, when I was a senior in college, like about to graduate, I had no idea what my future held. I was worried about graduating because I loved being in school, and I didn't know, like I really feared the unknown. But my advice, because God provided so much for me after graduation, and it wasn't provisions in terms of like my career, it was just me becoming a more three-dimensional person. So after I graduated, I worked in a variety of like different jobs, from retail to food service to eventually teaching, like substitute teaching. It was humbling, but God was there every step of the way, teaching me and helping me to grow as a person. And I felt that my stories would be richer because of that. And so my goal wasn't to, I guess, go further in my career. My goal at that point in my life was to understand who I am and become a fuller three-dimensional person, so that when I started grad school, I would ideally have richer stories to tell. And I would have no regrets that how I spent my life, that I pursued things that would enrich my life.
Okay.
So my advice to students who are graduating and maybe not knowing what they want to do is, first maybe focus on becoming a three-dimensional person, and maybe first focus on becoming a full person, as opposed to sometimes film students are all about film and one-dimensional in that sense.
So from that journey of finding your identity and finding a purpose, maybe, how did you ever become a professor? How did you make that decision?
I mean, it was, I had been teaching here and there at USC. I taught English in Japan after I graduated from USC. When I got back to the States from Japan, I moved up to Lake Tahoe and taught kids how to ski at one of the resorts. And so teaching has kind of been in my blood a little bit. When I was going to USC, I met my wife at grad school, and she happened to live at the time about 5 minutes away from Biola. And one of my professors in both undergrad and grad school, his name was Mike Gonzalez, was also a professor at USC and Biola. So Biola was always on my radar. And so when I saw that a position was opening up, I had just graduated from grad school, and I don't know, it just seemed like the way that I wanted to spend my life. I just felt like it gave me an eternal purpose.
I see that. Awesome. So from maybe you already answered this question, because you said there wasn't really any regrets. They were actually all fruitfully contributing to building your identity and moving forward. But so it's your but even though during those life of uncertainty, is there like a failure or a creative decision that you still think about today that really you think that you learned a lot and maybe you would do different or tell others to do different?
Well, I mean, I think like many people say, failures just, or uncertainties just make our lives richer. I mean, God truly allows us to be humbled so that I mean, I think that he can build us up, and obviously we learn a lot through our struggles. So I also I love sports. I love watching sports. I love it when athletes say that they just need have a short-term memory. Like they don't think about the last basket they missed. They don't think about the last strikeout they had. And I think that's also an important thing to keep in mind in life is to have a short memory when it comes to failures.
That's such a motivating idea to have in me because I think even as a filmmaker, it's one of those artistic mediums where you can like never be perfect. I mean, yeah, of course for the other ones, but like for an essay or a painting, maybe you can spend as much time as you can on it until you're satisfied. Whereas film, you're like your call time's 3 hours, and if you got to get everything in there, and it never does. And yeah, but you kind of have to learn how to be a stoic and move on forward from that. And I think that's such an interesting idea.
I mean, some people say that you never really finish a film, you abandon it. So, I mean, of course you finish it, but like at some point you have to just, you know,
yeah, like
move on to the next thing.
The compromise, I guess, and accepting and not being burdened and anchored by it. I think that's such a great mindset to have in life. I'll try to apply that too when I get on my journeys in film and just life in general.
Yeah. Good.
And then I do want to ask about your perspective on how Christianity plays into filmmaking. Yeah, has this secular industry ever hindered you with filmmaking?
Well, I mean, I think that filmmaking in general is as much a spiritual endeavor as it is a creative one. That's something that I stress to my students. Yeah, it's very creative, but there's also a spiritual element to it. And I think part of it is inviting God into the process. So, like this past year, my mom passed about a year ago, and sadly, I mean, it was a very sad time. But God really provided a lot from that moment on. My wife and I traveled to Tokyo over the summer with 14 Biola students to shoot a film. And that film was based on a story that my mom told me while she was ill. So, yeah. So I guess, I just think that when you invite God into the process, He was the one that provided the script idea. He was the one that provided the people that we worked with in Japan. He was the one that showed up on set every day that we were making this film. So for me, filmmaking is definitely a spiritual experience. And no, I don't think that, I've ever been hindered, from that because film and filmmaking are truly, when you invite God into the process of creation, can be really a beautiful thing.
First of all, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
And the film that you produced from that was Jitensha?
No, that was a previous film. This one we just got back in May, and it's called Coming of Age Day or Seiji no Hi.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. And then, yeah, I think it's a different perspective because we usually normally think that there is gonna be a secular hindrance into Christians, especially in Hollywood and secular stuff. But it's a really different perspective that you have of inviting God into films. Is there something you can tell to students who struggle to do that actually? And people who are struggling to invite God in their films, or how would you invite God into your films?
I mean, it's literally just having conversations with God and asking God to join you in this endeavor and to ask Him for inspiration and to, for Him to hear your voice and for Him to hear your prayers. It's asking Him to partner with you to create this thing that you're about to, embark on. So Biola students are great in that they are here because they love film and they love Jesus. And I think those two things, they really, I think, long for that spiritual experience.
I see. Yeah, I think that's something that separates Biola apart from a lot of other film schools and the industry is that it's a constant reminder that like the reason why we're doing this is expressing of our emotions. We're here to express God, and I think that's an amazing thing about it. And also, just as a CMA student who is taking Dean Yamada's class right now, I think it's actually been a film class where he actually incorporates Christianity in so well that when I just start writing my films, just from your influence, I tend to just always think about God and how I can tie Him into it, and what's a message that I can put into when I make my stuff. So it's been a really positive impact for me. I just want to say thank you for that.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, and then moving on, so a calling can be both very inspiring but also exhausting, especially in an industry where you are your own checking person. You have to do it. It's not like you're in a company where you have to go 9 to 5. And so has there ever been times when you sense a calling that felt more like a burden than a blessing, and how would you overcome it or changes like that?
There's a quote that I read once, and I can't remember who said it, but basically I think it was about a poet who was also a doctor. And so someone asked him about his two vocations, and he said that one gives him rest when the other fatigues him. And so for me, I feel like teaching is part of my calling, and so is filmmaking, and they go hand in hand. And I feel like teaching makes me a better filmmaker because I have to understand everything that we're doing in terms of like, all the concepts. And filmmaking makes me a better teacher, like more effective in the classroom. And so I see that quote as being so true in my life, where film, like I love filmmaking and that can be exhausting, but teaching then gives me life and gives me rest at the same time. And then when teaching gets tiresome, I think filmmaking brings me to life. So to have those two things in my life has been a huge gift throughout my whole career at Biola. I can't say enough about teaching and how much life it gives me, and how much life my students like you give me, because it's invigorating to be in the classroom and to have discussions and to talk about film and things that we love, and just to see how hungry and kind and ambitious you guys all are. Like it gives me a lot of life and a lot of inspiration as well. So I think those two things go hand in hand.
Gotcha. Yeah. Just want to say, as a student, I can tell you truly care, and the message that you really want us to have at the end of the day about God, and just having that in there is something that we are very well aware of just from the things that you expressed to us in class. So I just want to say that and say thank you. So what is something you can tell to students going into unstable careers? Not just CMA, maybe art, maybe philosophy, maybe just all those fields that are rather not conventional.
I mean, like I touched on before, I think part of it is first just becoming like a three-dimensional person and just becoming a fuller person. And so God has a plan, obviously, for each of us, and your plans for your life after college. And so just to trust that He's going to give you the experiences that you need. He's going to provide for your needs and the right jobs for you. And it's not just the jobs to further your career. I think it's also the work that will further your character, make you become that three-dimensional or fuller person. So there was no shame in like working at a grocery store or working at Starbucks or anything. So if that's what people do, like after graduation, that's just part of the journey. I mean, there's nobility, I think, in all work and what we do. So I don't think that there should be any sort of like shame if someone is like having a hard time and having to think that they're like settling and working somewhere that they didn't want to work. It's all part of the journey. I don't think anything is wasted. I think those are things that'll make people's stories richer as well, and maybe even make you a more empathetic person towards, people that are working these jobs just to put food on their table. So that's just, yeah, my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic and wonderful opinion. I really love that way how just every opportunity that God gives you is going to be something that becomes a part of you, and it's best to have the mindset of being able to take it, I guess, and really learn from everything that God gives you.
And I also just want to mention, I mean, Biola students are like vibrant and kind, and people they're people that people in the industry want to be around. And so I think I've seen a lot of my students just be a breath of fresh air. And so if you're kind and if you're someone that people want to be around, I think that will go a long way in your career.
Gotcha. I'll take that valuable advice in my life and I'll try to apply it to ours.
Good.
Thank you so much. So I do want to, I remember we had a very interesting conversation about Christian films once during a personal office hour that I had with Dr. Dean Yamada. And what would be something because we're sometimes expected to make positive or inspirational work. Do you think faith-based art has to inspire, or or can it like disturb? And what's your relationship between truth and covering up? And I want your opinion on Christian films today and how we can make it better.
Well, I think that for us to be our best, we should be honest. And I think when people are vulnerable in their storytelling, that goes a long way in whatever medium you're telling your story. So I don't personally believe that we have to have films that tie everything up cleanly and put on a happy face and this is what life is like. We know life is not like that, and so I think to tell honest stories, for me personally, I'd rather watch a film, and this is just me as as a human being, I would rather watch a film that breaks my heart than one that makes me feel good at the end. And that's why when we go to like Sundance, I love seeing films that literally just stun me and like hurt me and make me think about them for days afterwards. Where sometimes when you watch a film that ties everything up so cleanly, it's like, yeah, that was good and it was fun to watch, but it doesn't hit at those deeper things of humanity. I think it doesn't make me want to take action or do things. That's just a personal opinion. Everyone has their own taste. Other people's taste is like Hollywood fare or Christian fare, and that's fine. But there has to be space for all of us and all different kinds of storytelling. So I don't think storytelling should be forced to fit in a box. And I actually kind of think it's ridiculous that Christian films are expected to fit in a box. But we know that that's more of a financial thing, that if you're, making a Christian film and it's like kind of in the middle, it's not going to make any money because Christians won't think it's Christian enough and non-Christians, will think it's too Christian. So that way a lot of Christians feel like they have to pander to, a Christian audience. So, those are just like, that's just, yeah, I mean, for me, I prefer a different style of storytelling. Yeah.
I see. I think it's really interesting to hear about like the reality aspect of it in the industry of like how, at the end of the day, they got money and they do have to please people and stuff like that. So I see those aspects playing into it, and I really love the way how just honesty is key. I think just being really honest with it, but not ending it there, but telling them like what now.
Right. I mean, I love this quote from Orson Welles where he's like, if you want a happy ending, it depends on where you end the story. And so like if we're telling a story that maybe doesn't like end so happily in the film, that's not to say that there isn't hope, and that's not to say the story ends there. I see. Just as like in life.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Dean. So we have a couple of more questions.
Sure.
But just one for students is that I think just as a professor, would you have anything to tell us who are keep persevering through school and head towards the end of the semester, maybe specific for film students and even for students just in general?
I know this semester is like flown by, like it's gone by so quickly. And I would say enjoy it. I mean, these few years that you're going to be in college are going to go by so fast. I know it's hard to enjoy sometimes when you're super busy, but again, just take time to slow down and to enjoy like these little moments and to invite God into the process of um, making your films or writing your papers or whatever it is. Sometimes we compartmentalize and think that God isn't interested in those things, but God's interested in all the details. And so I would invite God into the minutia of your everyday life, of your studies, and just ask for his help.
Would there be anything more specific for film students or maybe in your class that you personally look for?
I mean, I just try and encourage my students always to tell their stories honestly, to know what their voice is. I think students are at this point in their journey where they're still figuring that out. The most basic part of their voice is just what they like and their taste, but to take that maybe a step further and to kind of figure out what their voice is and what it is that they have to say and what lens they see the world through.
I see. So before we wrap up, would there be anything else that you would want to say to us? Or another way to ask it would be, if we can only remember one thing from the session we had with you today, what would it be?
I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe what we said before is just, life isn't just about film. Film is great. I mean, and when I say film, I'm talking about all sorts of media. But there's more to life than that, obviously. And there's more to life than just our careers as well. So I would stop and think about like where your self-worth comes from, like, where God, who God has made you, and the journey that he's going to take you on to become a fuller person and to find your self-worth in him and to be comfortable in yourself and to know who you are.
I see. I see a reoccurring theme of really having just trust in God, whether it's a hard field like film or anything else. I also see a reoccurring theme of finding yourself and finding identity. And I see how they're harmonizing with each other because through every opportunity that God gives you, you're looking for something to find more about what God's trying to teach you. And I think that's really, would that kind of summarize some of the mindsets that you would want students to have? Was it accurate?
Sure. I mean, I think that'll only make you a better storyteller in the end. That'll only make your stories richer, maybe even more emotionally or spiritually deeper. So I think our films and whatever our choice of art is, it's a reflection of who we are. And so we're limited by our lack of depth or understanding. So I think the fuller we can be, that only serves our own storytelling as well.
Right. I love how we're getting to know you, not just as a filmmaker, but just as a Christian, as someone who is more wiser, who's older than us, and just personally engaging. And that's just been something that, I haven't quite been expecting out of this podcast, and I'm just more than glad that we were able to get it from you. And it's really moving me too. I would definitely try to apply this in my life. Before we do wrap up, though, I do want to talk about the film that you're worked on.
Okay.
Can you tell us? You mentioned it earlier. It was inspired by your story from your mother.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit more about it and how we can maybe watch it in the future when it goes
Yeah. I mean, hopefully we'll have a premiere here on campus at some point, maybe in the late spring or maybe early fall of next year. It's a film called Seijin no Hi, which means Coming of Age Day. in Japan, they celebrate the year that people turn 20 and they officially become adults. And so the story is about something my mom told me about her childhood where she saw something that she wasn't supposed to see that kind of like made her lose her innocence. And so the story is about a girl that comes of age prior to the official coming of age day. So
That's so interesting.
yeah, and so we went to Tokyo, my wife and 14 students. We had a pre-production class in the spring, and it was a lot of fun. And then we went, and it was truly a life-changing experience for, I think, all of us to make art together overseas. We worked with the casting director from the movie Perfect Days. I don't know if you've seen that Wim Wenders film, but it's about a Japanese man who cleans toilets for a living and lives a simple life and listens to good music. And so the casting director was gracious enough to work with us and sent people and cast all of our roles. So we worked with some really incredible actors, sent some of his team to be on set with us every day, and and the students had like the most amazing time working with them, working with these people in Japan who were so humble and so gracious, and yet so professional, and so we were the ones who were gifted that experience, and we were the ones who benefited from getting to know these people in Japan, and it was truly a gift from God.
Wow, I'm already so stoked to watch it. I'm really excited for that.
Well, I appreciate you asking.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Of course. That would wrap up our office hours today. Thank you so much for coming. We just had such a great time with you.
My pleasure. Yeah, thank you for asking.
Yeah, I think at one point I just even forgot that there were cameras here. I was just starting to talk to you. So, yeah, thank you so much for that. And when people come into your office hours, would there be, what might they see from you? Like, do you have a favorite object in your office?
Well, if you've been to my office right now, because we're in Lower Metzger, we're in cubicles right now, and I never unpacked my boxes from my old office because this is like temporary and we're going to be moving like, less than a year. So if you were to come into my office, all you would see is like a screen, and behind that screen is a bunch of boxes. So there's not really a whole lot to see, but ask me in like a year when we're moved into the new building, and I can tell you, what my favorite thing is there. So
Gotcha. We'll definitely keep that in mind. I'll come see you again, Dr.
Okay,
Yamada.
sounds good.
Thank you so much. I had a great time.